Hey everybody, welcome to AKA Geeks. This is our The Walking Dead review. With me I have Lynn.
What's up, everybody?
And I'm Sean. As you guys all know, we this past Sunday was the premiere of, was it the mid-season premiere, right?
Mid-season premiere.
Mid-season premiere, season 8, episode 9 of The Walking Dead. It was titled Honor. Let me give you a brief little bit what IMDb says, and tell me if this description can go for this episode or any other episode. Rick faces new difficulties after a battle. Meanwhile, the fight continues in other communities as core members face hard decisions. It's such a
generic
and bland description of the episode.
Definitely.
So before this episode started, I tweeted out and I put on Facebook like, yeah, okay, The Walking Dead's going on. I'm gonna watch it, but you know who better freaking die this episode? And as a joke, I was saying they better not tease us and then prolong it into the next season. So my hope was met. Let's talk about it. What do you want to start on? The Carl stuff?
I'm very disappointed with this season. This might get me to the point that I just dropped the show altogether.
So combining the first half of the season with this episode, you're saying?
Yeah. Because and just because of some of the resolutions that happened in this episode specifically, and if you go back and watch our earlier episodes, what we thought was going on completely blew that out of the water.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that we were hoping for, some of it came to fruition, some of it just kind of was not done. Well, my thing was, I was when I put that tweet out, that post up, I was talking about Carl. I wasn't even talking about.
I'm referring to that as well.
Yeah, and at the end, at the midsummer, at the finale, I was upset that they kept on, prolonging it. So going into this episode, with Carl on his deathbed, he actually did get bit. How do you think they handled the Carl situation? I mean, I don't want to break down every sentence within their conversations, but how do you feel about that whole situation with Carl?
First of all, I hate the whole episode just because they killed off Carl, and this is me coming from the comic book mentality that this is a part of the show that I can understand. They try to deviate and do their own thing, but this is part of the show that I'm sorry they cannot deviate from, and they just completely fuck themselves. Is how I feel.
Yeah, who's the future?
Yeah, exactly. Because Carl was prime candidate because he technically grew up right from the beginning and dealt with everything that came about. So,
do you know what that felt like to me? This whole death for Carl. It honestly, truly felt like he's becoming a teenager. He's growing too much and we can't show that much time period in this show. And he's now becoming an adult. You know what I mean? I felt like they were doing it for those reasons, and also he wants to do other things.
And I call bullshit on that for one reason, because I don't think it was. I understand, but here's why I call bullshit. If that is their way of thinking, I'm not saying it is. I just said I call bullshit because in the dream sequences that Carl's had with old man Rick and an older Judith.
Yeah.
Come on, man. They've done time jumps before. I don't want to hear that shit. So for them to,
exactly, they could have done a time jump right after the end of this war,
right?
And not have to deal with Chandler Riggs, Chandler Riggs as a person he's quickly
becoming older.
Yeah, he's almost 18 right now.
He is 18 now. He's almost 19.
Okay, so he is an adult now. So the thing is, and did you notice in this episode when they did the close
the stubble? Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, they have big shaved, but they didn't do it good enough.
Yeah. I think that was intentional.
You think so?
Yeah, I think that's to give him just that little bit of ruggedness without,
Because, let's be honest, he's grown in real life. Chandler Riggs has grown up a lot. And the character, they have never put a timeline on this show, right? Of how many years has passed. But we know it's been a few years because of what seasons, right? Just because of how many winters they've been through or whatever. And it was a lot easier to count when we were around the prison time, Now, it's hard to count because some seasons it seems like, oh, did they pick up a month later?
And that's what. Wait. now that you mentioned that, I don't think they've ever done a winter in comparison to how in the books they had.
No, but they've done stuff where they can't wear jackets because it's too hot and they're just sweating.
Right.
And then they go to like, okay, now they're wearing coats.
Yeah.
And that's their winter when they're wearing coats. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's like a change that's at least 1 year past, right?
Yeah.
So, but in the show though, obviously they haven't done like 7 of them, right? They've only done a few of them.
Yeah.
Like as far as I'm concerned, it's only been like 3 to 4 years of winter cycles, right? That we can kind of count. I mean, we can't be like accurate as much as we want to be, but I mean, from what we can estimate.
I think they keep it a little bit closer. They'll be off like 2 years, I would think. Not 4 or 5, but I'd say closer to 6.
Anything less than 4.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be that low.
It's probably no more than 4. I doubt it. But he's grown up so much that he's an adult now, and it's kind of weird in timeline wise. But they could do a jump. I understand what they tried to make happen with the Chandler death, with the whole reason to get Rick back to that place. I get that. That was a good effort. Like, gave it the college try, you know.
Yeah, but
I wasn't too happy with it. Still, are you like happy with it?
No, I'm not happy with anything in this episode. And I'll even use, because when they kept doing the cut scenes to him with the pink eyes, and bawling out the wazoo, and of course him and Michonne digging the hole, and the wooden cross again.
He was stabbed or something, right?
Yeah, and then and not only that, them underneath the sewer still. At the same time, you're jumping to old man Rick walking around, and that whole old man Rick and the settlement was just Chandler Riggs' dying dream that he was talking about, all wrapped up. So that's been an entire dick tease since the first episode.
Yeah, since the beginning of the first half of the season.
Yeah.
I'm happy though that was in Chandler Riggs' mind though, because I gotta say they overdid it with Rick's beard and it looked terrible.
No, I was okay with it. See, that I was okay with.
I thought it looked like, I'm okay with him doing a beard, but they should, if they're gonna do it, try to make him grow it out himself. It looked like it was too much put on, That's
you're gonna have him grow it out and then shave it for the scenes that he's, regular Rick?
Well, no. Well, I mean, it's hard to do right now, but I'm saying in the future, if they go there, then let's have his character Andrew Lincoln say, Andrew, grow out a beard, grow out a legit.
I don't think they have to tell him anything, because when he's in Rick mode, he's in Rick mode 24/7. He's one of those type of actors, so.
Yeah. So you're not happy with it. I'm not really happy with the Carl stuff either, because I feel like his death wasn't necessary to move the story forward, especially getting Rick back to that point where he wants something for the future.
Yeah.
I don't think they necessarily needed his death, because at the beginning of last season, Rick was saying himself, I've been dreaming about the future.
Right, and the whole reason why we're fighting the Saviors is for that future. So tell me where he forgot it to begin with?
I don't know. Is there an episode there towards the end of the first half that we missed? Because he was still dreaming about it when they were prepping. Remember when they were showing them all huddled around all the cars?
Yeah.
Prepping.
The whole point of bringing everybody together, the kingdom, everybody, was so for that future. So unless they're thinking, and this is the cop out that I can think of, when he was like, deer in headlights focus on killing Negan, that he couldn't see anything surpass that. Yeah. If that's what they're using as an excuse, it's still very cheap, and it cheapens the reasons why they do it.
Are you referring to like some of the scenes where he had a shot at Negan?
Where he was just saying, I'm doing it, when he was like, Negan's mine, or whatever happens, I get him. Yeah. Nobody else can touch Negan but Rick. He's
getting lost in that little moment, but the whole first half of the season, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So if they're going off of that, it's still a cheap. It's a cheap plot closer just for that.
Yeah, and it wasn't needed. It wasn't necessary. Chandler Riggs, Carl could have still gone on. Rick still was in my opinion, Rick was still looking towards the future himself.
Yeah.
So I'm not happy with his death. Based on the comic books, we both read, we'll let it out. He becomes this badass hero that everybody looks up to, right? Yeah,
and he died a virgin. What the fuck is that, man?
I was thinking of in the show. I was watching the show. I was like, oh, he never got his dick wet.
No, I'm like, that's what I mean. They've touched on it in the books, and they did it so nicely, and they
important moment for his life.
Yeah, and they didn't give him that.
Not even him. Well,
they didn't even hint at it. They just started with the whole one girl that
Enid.
Enid.
Remember?
Yeah, but they teased it with Enid but Enid to me is like where Sophia is in the books.
Okay.
She's like that. Friendish.
You got that. Like Enid's took over Sophia's role. Yeah.
Yeah. So I see that and I'm like, okay, that was not ever going anywhere.
It's the one where everybody thinks they're going to be together, but they're not going to
be together. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I the whole Carl thing, I think you and I, we're saying it right now, we're both disappointed. We both didn't like it. We both didn't feel it was necessary. That doesn't mean that there weren't certain moments in it that I liked. I liked when Rick and Michonne stay with Carl and Judith goes with Daryl, and Daryl tells them, like, you saved all these people, and makes it like meaningful, or try at least what they're trying to do with the show.
Well,
is make it
I understood that because out of Carl's family, I use that in quotation as far as closeness, it's just Michonne, Rick, and Daryl, because out of who was there at the moment, everybody else, they're people Johnny come latelys. They weren't there with him from the beginning. From when it all started.
You have Masterson, but she was there.
I can't count. I can't count Carol. I can't count you because she wasn't there.
Wasn't there, but Carol would be one.
Carol is definitely one, but since she wasn't there, I can't count her in the close niche. So everybody who spoke to him was everybody who was closest to him from the beginning.
Maggie wasn't there.
Right, but I'm talking about as far as who was there. It was just Rick, Michonne, his sister, and of course Daryl. Those are the only ones he spoke to because those have been with him from the beginning. You know,
I like what Daryl said.
Yeah,
and it's nice what he said, but still with the moment we're still kind of like, what the hell is this happening, right?
Yeah.
What did you think about how Dwight is treated in the moment?
I didn't like the conversation Michonne had with Dwight when she's asking him to go up there and tell them to stop. Because it made her character completely weak. I know they wanted you to think, well, she's thinking in the moment, she's thinking about getting Carl out from under the sewers, and she thinks there's this guy who is a part of them. First of all, that would never happen. Dwight's already been caught out there as not a part of the Saviors anymore. So he would have been killed. They would have been killed. That made no sense for that conversation to happen. I like that now it shows a little bit of where we expect Dwight to be later on, where we see him, where we're familiar with him.
A little bit of leadership right there, where they listen to him, take his advice.
Right. So I did see that spark there, but my favorite conversation had to deal with Siddiq and Carl.
Yep, that's what I was gonna say.
And
that's the best conversation right there.
And whereas Carl was justifying the reasonings, for Siddiq, making sure Siddiq doesn't blame himself for this or anything like that. And the look that Rick was giving Siddiq was one of complete sadness, because I didn't know how much in common Siddiq and Carl had until that moment when Carl's talking to him. When he's talking about them being all by themselves, until he brought up the mothers. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's I don't know why I didn't catch it before, but this sort of sealed the deal, and it made perfect sense. I love the conversation between him and Siddiq saying, I'm always going to honor you. There's no way I'm going to let you down.
Yeah, I liked that conversation. Sadiq, I could see Sadiq really developing as a character in the future.
Yeah.
I hope they do. And hopefully he becomes not necessarily Carl's character, but someone that's a younger character that can. I mean, he's still not young. He's at least 25-ish, right?
Yeah, he's up there.
Yeah, I mean, but embody that persona of what Carl had and take it forward. But I don't think they should put him as like a killer, like a badass. He's definitely going to replace Dr. Carson, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure Dr. Carson is going to be dead now. Unless they bring him back somehow, now you can finish his residency.
Yeah, he's a resident.
Yeah. So he can finish his residency over there at the hilltop. Okay, so that kind of covers that.
Well, at least we know Dr. Carlton is still under Negan's care.
Yeah,
so he hasn't left there. So now each side has their own doctor. So maybe Dr. Carlson doesn't even need to die. He just, because when they alleviate, spoiler, when they alleviate futures, the saviors from Negan's hold, and they start to work with Rick and the rest of the, communities, they're going to need their own doctor. At least they'll have 2 out of the 3 areas.
3, yeah. Or, well, 1, 2, 3, 4 areas. 2 out of the 4 areas.
Well, out of right now, the 2 main areas, because
Kingdom's done, and Arcade and Alexandria's been destroyed really badly as well.
Yeah.
So the hilltop and saviors. All right, last bit of part of the Carl stuff. What did you think about his end at the end of the episode with allowing Rick and Michonne to not have to be the one to pull the trigger because they love him so much, and him being the kind of guy
it was. I felt it was the other way around. He didn't want them to do it because he loved them, and he didn't want to put them through that.
That's what I did.
And at the same time, he felt I could do it. I did it to my mother. I can take care of myself. That was him. That was him reminding everybody, hey, I've done this. I'm good. I'm steady. If I feel myself slipping, I can handle myself.
You know what I liked about that? Right before that moment, he brings up some stuff from a past episode that was never spoken about.
Yeah.
But it also brought back the whole thing that Rick saw in Carl that made Rick pull back at the prison and kind of let the council start making decisions and no guns and yada yada.
Yeah.
And it was nice for them to reflect on that and kind of bring stuff back around. I did like the fact that because he loves them so much, he doesn't want them to go through that, like you said. He did it for them so they wouldn't have to experience that, which is understandable.
Yeah.
There are moments within this whole Carl storyline that are little moments that are like nice you could point out, like we're talking about. But overall, I still feel that it was an unnecessary death. I feel.
Yeah, to me, it's going to be a cheap plot point for the entire season, and it's ruined for me anywhere they go from this, because they got a lot to rework because of this.
A lot for you too.
Yeah.
Let's jump over to the Morgan and Carol stuff.
Oh man, that's some badass stuff.
So I love the stuff with Morgan and Carol.
And Ezekiel.
They work great as a team. I like that Carol, as much as she's been through, she's the most fleshed out character in this whole show. She's been to hell and back multiple times. She's been able to recover from it. She still is able to think clearly, and she's able to put everything she's happened to her into whatever she needs, and been able to use it as a driving force and understand what's going on. And she's able to keep her cool while Morgan's over there, going from one end of the spectrum to the other. When you really just want to say, Morgan, please find a happy in between.
Yeah.
Like with his whole thing, everybody's got to die, cleared, kind of stuff. And then oh no, I can't touch you because I'm at peace with my stick. So I like seeing Morgan going around doing this stuff. I'm getting tired of him trying to shake his head to get out this, the cobweb.
Yeah.
Right? I'm tired of this. Figure it out, dude.
So while I was watching it, Susan came up with a theory, and this is hers alone, because I don't think this is the reason, but she goes that what she expects to happen with Morgan's character is that because of this thing, there's going to be a point where he has to go away and he has to like leave. He take a sabbatical or what have you. And since we all know he's going to be on Fear the Walking Dead, but I reminded her Fear the Walking Dead takes place years before. They're still, you know, Rick had just gotten out of coma from where they're at right now.
Yeah, in Fear the Walking Dead, they're maybe a few months in.
Yeah, no, like right now where they're at, Rick has just started his process.
Yeah, well, I'm saying probably a few months in because they are on season 3 now.
Yeah, but the reason why I say this is because of, remember, we don't know how long Rick was in that coma before he woke up after the gunfire. And when he woke up, everything was already like broken down. So he went in through the first 2.5 seasons of Fear, is what I'm saying.
You know what would be nice now that we're this far along? And just to sidestep a little bit real quick, is when Morgan gets to whatever point he's at in the Fear of the Walking Dead, if they kind of gave us a timeline at that point, it'd be really nice.
I think the whole Morgan thing is going to be pre-Rick, you know, with his kid, with his wife, and that's how he's going to run across them. I don't think it's Morgan as he is now, because then they're going to be like, all right, now you've just jumped through the Walking Dead about a few dozen years without explaining how the fuck. You know what I mean?
But I'm hoping they clarify some stuff time-wise.
Yeah.
Because if we do that and we see Morgan with Dwayne still alive, we know at what point that is.
Well,
you know?
I expect Dwayne and his wife. Because remember, his wife is in Rick's neighborhood when Rick and Morgan met. So I expect both of them to be alive. Both of them to be healthy. Whether she's even bit and that's why he goes to Georgia from Texas, whatever the case may be. Maybe they were. I just see this more as a backstory for Morgan, which is something that's been teased already, but it's never been to fruition in the books or here, because in the books, of course, he's been gone.
But back to the main point, so Susan said...
Susan thought he was going to disappear from this, and that's what's going to lead for him to go into the Fear, and I reminded her I don't think it's going to be that way. It's more of a prequel for Morgan, more of a backstory.
I think he might leave, though, because Morgan is so emotionally fragile.
Well,
I think he's going to say, like, I need to get away for a while.
I don't disavow that part, but the thing is, I don't think they're going to...
over there.
Yeah, no, I think there's going to be a filler, like there's going to be little snippets of, we'll be seeing Morgan, just not with the group, just like they did before when he was with the one guy.
Yeah, or like when he was with, or like when Carol went to that house, right?
Yeah.
Carol needed some time away, so she went to that house.
Right. So it'd be something like that.
Yeah. So what did you think about all this, like, Metal Gear Solid type of freaking sneaking around, taking dudes out? What did you think of this stuff?
First of all, I'm gonna ignore that for now, and I'm gonna go with the whole Ezekiel paraphrasing, whatever he was paraphrasing. I would love to fully understand what he was paraphrasing, because it wasn't Shakespeare.
Was one of them Martin Luther King?
But a lot of his paraphrases that he was doing was pretty much also foretelling the guy, you know, you're dead, right? That's how I understood everything he was telling. It was like, you know, there's still a chance you could save yourself. There's still a chance you could stop this. You could be a good person like you expect to be. You don't need to be this way. You know you're gonna die, right? That was he didn't care that he was cuffed down. He was still being King Ezekiel, which I appreciated it, because he was finally out of that lump, and he was like, "You're dead, man. No matter, you either can get out of this on your own by doing what's good, doing what's right, or you're dead." Yeah.
That's what I took it as. Kind of the first part is that he was saying, look, there's still time.
Yeah.
I have to go through with this. And then it got to the point where I didn't get the part where you're gonna die part stuff, but there was a point though where it was, yes, there's a point of no return, and that you're not there yet.
Yeah.
You're at that point, especially when the guy's like, you know, I liked you, Ezekiel, you got it, but then he started giving his reasons why he liked him. I was like, oh, those aren't very great reasons to like the guy. You should like the guy because he's a good person and he's taking care of his people, and you actually see the fault in Negan, but that wasn't his reasoning, right?
But at the same time, this is somebody who sees Negan from his perspective. Negan's doing right by them. So this is a perfect example that shows that though the group of people that make up some of the saviors really fell into Negan's bullshit, and saw him as good because they right. So
salt on it
and think back to Woodbury, how the Woodbury people saw the governor. They saw him as this wonderful caretaker. So this is one guy who saw Negan, in his opinion, as the good guy, and that Rick and the others were bad.
The thing about Woodbury, though, also the governor was, he was playing more nice guy with his people, and then had the bad stuff hidden. While Negan is kind of more open door.
But at the same time, Negan was all about keeping his people alive.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'm just saying slightly different, but they're kind of same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're pretty much the same characters, just different levels of rampness. Like Negan's definitely right where the governor's sly and sneaky and basically a rat type character. Negan's straight out balls to the wall villain. Yeah. I don't need to hide.
Yeah. So yeah, that stuff was good with Ezekiel. I like Ezekiel. I like seeing him develop more, and I want to see him merge those two sides of him when he's acting and as being his real self.
Yeah, I don't think I saw that. My opinion, I didn't see it as him acting, but I saw him as the full circle. Yeah, I saw that merge there.
That's what it felt like this episode. He was using stuff that he would normally use as King, but he was also kind of being
himself.
And that's what I felt, and I was like, I like this.
Yeah.
I like, because some of the King stuff is a little too much. And at this point now we're in a war. Like, you got to start being real with things. So it was nice though. I like his quotes. That was some good stuff. All right, now Carol and Morgan sneaking around doing their stuff.
Yeah, I understand him with the stick, but they took out everybody that was in there. There must have been it must have seemed like 50 guys the way they made it out to seem.
I was just watching it and I was just thinking, like, this is like me in Assassin's Creed Origins going around just freaking taking dudes out left and right. And I was like, this dude, like, they're gonna take out the whole thing. And again, like I said, I'm getting tired of Morgan like teeter-tottering between insanity and sanity. I'm kind of tired of it. Like, I want him to wake up and smell the roses or something. And
I think the wake up moment was towards the end of when he saw Henry, and he was like, "What the really?"
Yeah. I hope that is an impacting moment that wakes him up and shows him, like, hey, like, I got to realize what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be entirely that way, because that kind of led to this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hope, because even Carol, like I said, Carol's been able to go through hell and back, and she's gotten all that and learned how to use it. And even there's points where Carol's like, skip them. You don't need to go after those guys. They're not gonna do anything. And what she had to do, she had to save his life, right?
Yeah.
So Carol learns how to let it fuel her, and still understands when and when not to do it. I want Morgan to get to that point. Do you think he'll ever get to that point?
I think this is the start of it. Seeing Henry do that. What worries me is that now they focus Henry as the little kid on the block, the new boy on the block.
New Carl.
Because think about when Carl was young. That's all he wanted to do. I want to go out there. I don't want to kill. Blah blah blah. Yeah. I don't want to. Don't do that with this kid, man, because I'm gonna want to see his head chopped off real quick.
I want him to. I want the kid to grow up and take pride in defending himself and things like that, but being like what normal would be in this universe. Understanding that there are certain times to do things and when certain times not to. This is when the Aikido teachings of Morgan can come into play. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, he needs to study that some more, because I don't know if he needs to, to sit and do the alms for a bit, because he's completely not focused.
It was a pretty instant. Right when it happened, I was like, "What the heck? Oh shoot, he got
Yeah,
from behind."
because when I saw it poke out, I'm like, "That's not Morgan." Unless he turned into the fucking Roadrunner and got behind him.
My first thought was like, "Wait, he wasn't standing behind him."
Yeah.
Oh, angle of that's pretty low. So I was like, "Oh shoot, the kids did it." I like what they did with this. I like how it's an entire contrast between what the Morgan and Carol stuff was and Ezekiel stuff versus the Carl stuff in this episode. Complete contrast. Overall, so you didn't like this episode overall?
Alright, to be fair, everything that had to revolve around Carol, Morgan, and Ezekiel was just fine.
Okay.
Old Man Rick, that pissed me off. Because of what I was expecting and hoping would be like the time jump at the end of the season, and that's where we're headed, because I and you knowing where that leads to would make sense. But because to be honest, for some reason I expected the war to be the next 2-3 episodes, but using Carl as a death of the season is cheap. You ruin a lot of plot points that are important.
The rest of the season now.
Huh?
I think this war is going to last the rest of the season now.
Well, see, both you and I didn't think that was going to be the case because of the whole Old Man Rick thing and the cane and.
To end at the mid-season, and then this one
start
with new stuff.
And now we, for the time being, we see no end in sight.
No.
Now, obviously, Walking Dead is usually 16 episodes. We're at 9, so we're a little over the halfway now. We're going to episode 10 next week. And I don't want this to be like the prison. I don't want this to be like Woodbury.
That's what I was thinking.
You know? I don't want the final confrontation between Negan and Rick to be the second to the last episode. And then that last episode, oh, look, we're all fine and dandy. He broke my leg. I'm good. But I got him locked up.
I would be okay with it if they were in the middle of this half of a season, they somehow got to the resolution of that.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need, just because this is half a season doesn't mean they have to go by this stuff. Scott M. Gimple, he's still listed as executive producer or whatever, but they've taken him from his position as showrunner.
Yeah.
You know, there's somebody else being Galen Hurd's the showrunner now, and I'm assuming it's because of the backlash they got over this past season of what I was mad at last half season at the end, and a lot of people are getting upset with them about, you know, giving us the dick teases but not paying them off. Let me draw a contrary kind of similar thing. When we watched Game of Thrones this last year, there was some critics that didn't like what was happening. They said it was fan service. I love the fact that they actually started paying some things off. You know?
Well, not only that,
I want that to happen in this.
In Game of Thrones, they have no choice to pay things off because they're running out of time. They're running out of material. So it's like...
Well, yeah.
So you have to start wrapping shit up and start paying services to the fans. What we were all thinking and expected to happen. You know what I mean? So it made sense for Game of Thrones.
Paying off some things as well. You don't have to pay off everything in every episode, but give us some things that resolve some stuff from here to whenever this war is going to end.
And if my thing is, if you're going to deviate, fine, deviate, make it its own entity. But when you know that a key figure, and I'm referring to Carl, is a huge plot points to a lot of the future stuff that happens, you know, pertaining to growing up in the apocalypse, dealing with that type of mentality, how he becomes a stable, well-balanced individual because of it. You just eliminated all that.
Like like now when the Whisperers come, it's going to be some random person that causes...
Yeah, because you can't use a little girl.
You can't use Carl now.
Somebody who's Carl's age, because Carl's the reason why he wanted to reach out to them.
Yeah. So, I mean, like you're saying, they're going to come up, they're going to have to fabricate some freaking reasons to do these things.
And it's going to come out, for us, and anybody else who's read books, for us, all those fans that are on both, it's going to come off cheap. It will, no matter how good, it could be the greatest thing ever seen, but it'll come off cheap.
Yeah.
Because of,
it's not going to come off and have the same impact because it's not Carl.
Right.
Specifically with the Whisperers, because he's the reason with that. But
I mean, losing Carl isn't the same as, losing Andrea and Michonne taking Andrea's spot, or the fact that Carol, who should have died at the prison because we all know she goes nuts from being alone, and loses Sophia. Now they've completely. Those are understandable deviations that I specifically loved, and it was a nice fresh and made the show its own. Killing Carl doesn't fall under that line whatsoever.
And killing Carl just to make Rick realize that he needs to be good, right?
Yeah.
Which, like we said, is not a great.
Yeah, it's a huge mistake.
So, all right. So, last question before we wrap it up. What did you think about seeing Negan in the garden?
It pisses me off because I expected that to be that part of that time jump that we stay there. You know what I mean? And what's weird, and keep this in mind, in that vision that Carl has, if everybody remembers at the beginning, we saw Carl in that future vision.
Did we?
Yes, because he comes in the morning as Rick and Michonne are having breakfast, and he talks to them, and he goes off.
In this episode or
no, this was early on in the season when we first started seeing snippets of the old man Rick.
So
when old man Rick gets up
and the season or something.
Yeah, he's in there, and I'm like, well, that's kind of fucked up. Now, seeing Negan in there, it's just Carl's idea of what he expects everything to happen. Everything goes to the wayside. Everyone joins up, and now it's a community, and it's building towards that future that Rick was working on. So that it cheapened it for me because I'm like, oh man, that's not real. I doesn't matter to me about seeing that whole section now.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I think there are definite things where hopefully they can take fan criticism, or they take it in and say like, okay, maybe with the future stuff, when we go to the next level of story, we can change some things. Maybe the fans were not happy with those.
Yeah, you can't bring Carl back. That's for sure.
Unless Ghost Carl or something like that.
Yeah, well, he's gonna be a Jedi.
No, I mean like Rick's seen visions or something.
Oh, like he did with his wife.
Yeah, like the telephone or yeah. All right. So overall, though, how'd you feel about the episode? It's on IMDb. It seems like it's middle of the road.
I'm there as well. I'm like, I could go either way, good or bad. You know what I mean?
I would say that I've felt more upset with an episode with how the last half season ended. The episode, middle of the road. There's some good things we could look at, but that main part of the storyline in this episode kind of puts a big thorn in my side.
Yeah.
So, all right. So next week we have episode 10. It's called "The Lost and the Plunderers." Let me read you what they got written down here on IMDb. Groups unite their forces and converge on the hilltop. Aaron and Enid search for allies. Simon takes matters into his own hands. So groups unite their forces and converge on the hilltop. Is that because the group in the sewers were going to go to the hilltop, right? Does that mean that the junkyard people and Negan's people combine?
No, because I think Negan's going after the junkyard people. That was the whole conversation in the scene that they showed us.
Yeah.
That's who he was planning to go after. I say, hey, you guys fucked us now again. We need to handle that shit now before we even. For some reason, in that scene, Negan wasn't even worried about the hilltop or anywhere else. He was just focused on the garbage people.
Yeah. So then so groups. I don't know which groups are going to unite.
Well, I think it's the sewer kingdom. I think it's going to be Carol, Morgan, and Ezekiel. That's one group. I think that this is everybody coming together at the hilltop.
A three-person group. And
yeah.
sewer. Yeah. Okay.
And then of course Michonne and Rick is a group unto themselves now. So
they're now another little
yeah.
And then so Aaron and Enid search for allies. They're gonna go to the sea people, right?
The women.
But the only thing is that Enid just killed the grandma.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah.
And Simon takes matters into his own hands. I like Stephen Ogg. He's a great. He does a great character of Simon.
I see him as Trevor every time I see him. Trevor. Anytime he says anything, I'm just like, Trevor.
I love his character. He always has something to say, and it's always sometimes off the wall. Sometimes it's pretty straightforward, but he has this like twitch in his eye or something. It's like, what the hell are you thinking, dude?
Trevor?
Yeah. So I hopefully I want to see Simon make it till the end of the war at least.
I don't think so. I think he's going to. I think Negan's going to take the blunt of Lucille to him real soon.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, because in that one scene that they showed in the sneak peek, he was making sure, hey, you better follow what I'm telling you. I don't want this to go further south than it already is.
Yeah.
So that was like an ultimatum right there.
So if you don't, he might. Yeah, we'll see. I love his character though.
Yeah.
All right, Lynn. Any last thoughts about this last week's episode?
Cheap.
Are you looking forward to see where it goes from here?
No, because I really think they got a lot to pull out their asses. I don't understand the gimmick. I could for doing this. To me, this death is nothing but a gimmick. Like they just do it. They just did it to do it.
Yeah.
Because
so
I
work to do with you.
Yeah, because I remember when they took the break, when Scott Gimple was talking about that episode, and he was talking about, it makes sense with the character that this happens to him now, and no, it doesn't. It doesn't. You took us from a whiny, bratty, snot-nosed kid that was always in the way, always stepping ahead of himself instead of being in the here and now, to a young adult who's like more well balanced than his own father and actually teaching him a few things. And then you figured, let's just get rid of him because we got nobody else to get rid of.
There are other people they could definitely get rid of.
Of course, but that's my point. They had more emphasis. They could have emphasized on somebody else more so.
Because everything that I read towards the end of the season regarding Scott M. Gimple being relieved as showrunner was not positive thing. It was not a positive thing. It was because of negative things. That's why he was pulled.
Well, so be it.
Yeah, and if this is one of the reasons why,
I
can definitely understand.
Yeah, because I don't, but I still don't see how they can turn this around after this. They got a lot of work to do. Stories could be good coming here on out, but there's a lot of work to be done.
I think where I'm at with this episode and going forward is that so much is going to be very different from now on.
Yeah.
Like even more so different. Now it's almost like it's entirely different from the book. And I know that sounds weird because it's just one character, but where we've gone with reading the book, so much goes from Carl,
Yeah.
Carl. And so it's going to be like it's a whole new show, whole different show. And
I would love to hear what Robert Kirkman's words are about seeing this and what he thought if he believes they should have done this, because I would really love to hear him.
Yeah, I'd really love to hear him be honest about it.
Yeah, and then one way we could check, because he always talks about the show and the books in his letter pages for the books, so I'm gonna have to pay close attention to that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's it for today's episode. We'll be back next week with next week's episode. Lynn, you want to say some goodbyes?
Later, guys. As always, thank you.
Thank you guys for joining us. If you have a chance to check out the podcast, we'll be doing that on Thursday. It'll be live for you guys. Add both Lynn and I on Xbox and PlayStation. Let's play some games together. Check out my unboxing box number 2 of the Fallout crate. Give the first box another 75 views so I can hit the 3,000 mark. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.